everybody, Backyard Bullion here, coming to you today with another Ponderous Wednesday. Now, if you're new to my channel or don't know, Ponderous Wednesdays are my forum for taking a thought-provoking and interesting topic and having a good old natter and ramble about them here on YouTube to stimulate some interesting discussion down in the comment section. And this week we're going to talk about front-loading, as I call it, or the question of how much gold and silver you should buy at the start of your stacking journey to preserve that wealth. It's a really interesting question. It's one that I've given a lot of thought to. I know a lot of other people have as well. So I thought I'd present some of the pros and cons of what I call front-loading. I don't know if there's a better terminology for that, so please do comment down below with your thoughts and opinions. On that subject, this video is just a representation of my own thoughts and opinions on this subject. I am not a financial advisor, I'm not a pensions advisor, I'm just a guy who likes to talk about shiny things here on YouTube. So any financial decisions you make having watched this video are yours and yours alone. So front-loading is what I call it, and I guess that would be the best way to describe it would be, you know, how much gold and silver do you buy on year one of your sort of stacking journey, or very early on in your stacking journey. You know, for me, I've talked about this in my last couple of videos, I stack silver and gold primarily for my pension, so we're talking sort of 30 years time, and I will have a kind of sizable pot of pensionable funds as well as gold and silver, which I will then use as a kind of, you know, it can be down as a drawdown kind of pension fund, or to release, you know, a large sum of money to buy a forever home or go on a world holiday or something like that. You know, that's the main reason that I sort of stack for my future. It's for a big drawdown pot of pension money. And the reason I stack gold and silver is to preserve that buying power. I'm not really one to believe that silver and gold will shoot the moon or have some huge price correction coming in the future at some point. It's just not likely in my books, but you know, it'd be a happy boon if it does. But at the same time, I am very much in it for that wealth preservation side of things. So the wealth preservation side is the most important thing. It means that the £1,000 I might have now that I put into some silver or gold, you know, that buys me £1,000 worth of stuff right now. In 30 years' time, that same £1,000 just left in a bank account or as cash under a mattress will devalue, as all currencies do over time, you know, and that same £1,000 might be in 30 years. Certainly if you left it under a mattress, it would be worth, you know, pittance. It would not get you £1,000 worth of stuff today. So gold and silver, very much that kind of wealth preservation tool for making sure that that buying power is preserved. So the question comes, do you kind of front load all of that now? You know, if you've got a certain pot of money, if you've just discovered the world of silver and gold, kind of similar to I did, you know, I had savings. I had savings when we got into all of this, and I you know, decided to allocate a certain proportion of my savings, you know, that I was making on a monthly basis into silver and gold. But then, as I progressed as a stacker, and as I learned more about sort of the world of stacking and the reasons for stacking as well, because originally I'd thought about it as a relatively short-term, you know, commodity type trade almost. You would buy at a certain price and sell at a certain price and make a bit of money. That's obviously evolved quite a lot for me over the last couple of years. And the question comes, do you save on a monthly basis with silver and gold for your entire 30 years, and you do the same every month, the same every year? Maybe you increase it a little bit as you go along because, you know, as you get older, perhaps your earnings increase with your career progression. Or do you, you know, buy a whole load up front and then just have a little bit of a trickle going in to top it up? There are benefits for both sort of mentalities, both strategies, as you would call them, I suppose. So let's highlight some of the pros and cons. So the biggest pro that I can see for front loading is that you do preserve that large sum of money now. So if you've got you know, some spare cash lying around, if perhaps you've already, you know, already on the property ladder, you're saving some money, and you've decided that you don't want to put it all into your mortgage because the mortgage is incredibly free, it's not free at all, incredibly cheap loan, and it's no doubt with the interest rates where they are at the moment that a mortgage is an incredibly cheap sort of loan at the moment, and not everybody will want to pay all of that off straight away. So what can you do? You can potentially buy gold and silver. Now, I look at this as very much that kind of, as I said, wealth preservation tool, and the reason for that is if you look at history, property and gold and silver have done incredibly well at preserving that buying power over the sort of 30-year periods. And I remember reading an article on, I think it was the Financial Times website, about gold, silver and property compared with each other, and they all performed actually remarkably similarly. The best of the three was property, but then you had gold and silver coming up with not actually that much difference in the long-term kind of preservation of wealth. So that side of things was really interesting to me, because I then sort of view a lot of my precious metals now as mini property, basically. So each silver coin is a £15 house, or each ounce of gold is a little £1,000 house, or it's a small investment in that kind of thing. It's obviously a lot more liquid than property as well, which is obviously a really good thing. And if you have a large pot of money that you've put to one side because you have that money and you want to put it into something rather than just a 1.5% bank account or something, then definitely maybe front loading is the right thing. If you didn't want to have the stress and burden of another property, there are other things to factor in about buying other properties. Capital gains tax is one, for example. So if you were to purchase a whole bunch of gold and silver and you bought these Britannias or capital gains exempt silver coins, gold coins, that's a really good thing. It will preserve that buying power. It will hopefully come out of the other end completely capital gains tax exempt, which is great. So that's definitely something to factor in. So buying all in one go, just unloading your savings into gold and silver might seem like actually a very good idea, because then that means year one you front load, you've got all of that money locked away, and then year 30 comes along and you've had the most amount of time. And that's, I think, the most important thing. The time that something is invested in gold and silver is what makes it so valuable in terms of that wealth preservation tool. So the most that you can maximise that, the better, and you'll be able to preserve that buying power well into your sort of 30-year period, as opposed to buying a certain amount, 1/30th of that every year for 30 years. Of course, the other big benefit is if let's hypothetically say that silver and gold prices are going to go up, which hopefully they will at some point. We've had a bit of a down over this last couple of months, but ultimately when they get to sort of 20 years time, 10 years time, 20 years time, the prices will probably be higher than they are right now. So of course you're going to be front loading on the price as well. You're going to be having a certain price that has been locked in for 30 years. Now, of course, if you are unlucky, and perhaps you did something like that in 2010, 2011, when silver prices were very, very high, then of course you're locked in at a higher price. So there are negatives to think about in this kind of front-loading question, and I think that's one of them. That's not necessarily the most important one for me. I would probably say the most single important thing is always going to be budget, is always going to be liquidity of funds, of fiat. As much as we all hate fiat currencies, they are a necessity. It's what we need to live on. You buy food, buy a house, pay your rent with them, pay your mortgage with fiat currencies. So it is important. And if you unload all of your fiat currency into gold and silver, then you are tying up everything very, quickly almost. And whilst it's more liquid than buying a property with all of that cash, you need to budget. So I would say to most people, don't go full hog and buy everything that you've got. Don't liquidate all of your cash into gold and silver. Always plan and have some budgets in hand, because that's probably the most important thing that you can do. And that's ultimately what I do. So I have, to some extent, taken on board this kind of front-loading mentality, and the way I look at it is I'm not going to take a very large sum of money. I'm not going to liquidate all of my savings and put them into gold and silver. Now, I don't think that's the right course of action for me. It might be for you, but it's certainly not for me. I like to just purchase coins as I go on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. I have yearly goals, and what I'm planning is that those yearly goals will slowly decline over the coming years. So I'm buying more in these first sort of 5-10 years than I will be in the last 5 or 10 years. And it gives me the pleasure of being able to purchase coins like this one, and you've been eyeing it up on the table. I've finally got it out here. This is a pretty intense coin. Look how thin that is. This is a Austrian Ducat. I think it's a 4 Ducat. Yes, there's a 4 at the bottom there. I will be featuring this on an In Focus Friday, I'm sure, at some point, so I'm going to talk about it more then. But it's stuff like this you can purchase on a sort of monthly basis. You can watch the gold prices, watch the silver prices, and you can pick up things as they go rather than all in one go, which then obviously really kind of locks you in at a certain price point and restricts your buying power for future purchases. And obviously situation changes, because that's the other major downside to kind of front loading all of this stuff. It's the downside to buying property as well. I remember my parents, when they bought their house that I grew up in, You know, it was back in the sort of early 90s, and you know, you had all of the negative equity. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to put my coin back in its flip and failing miserably. But yeah, so that, you know, buying back in the 90s was great, but then of course we had a huge kind of debt crisis, or not debt crisis, huge kind of crash crisis in the properties. And I remember my parents when I was younger talking always about like negative equity, and that they could not move because the property was worth considerably less than what they paid for it, so they'd be selling at a loss, and you know, it just was not practical to ever move. So we were stuck in this little house, which was a lovely little house, and it was a very happy childhood house to be living in. But my parents always wanted to move out of that, and they couldn't until a certain time. And the same can be said for, you know, silver and gold. If you've bought, you know, a couple of years ago at that higher price point, like I said, you're locked into those prices. The liquidity of that, it would really hurt, it would really sting to have to sell all of that now. So budgeting is key, and making sure that what you are spending on your gold and silver is not something that you're going to need in the near future. So another example is that Mrs. Backyard Bullion and I have just recently had to have a lintel replaced in our house. So part of our outside wall was falling down, which was great fun, and huge cracks in the side of the house. So we've had to have some builders come in and repair that. And obviously that's not a cheap thing to have done. And you know, you need savings for that, and that's what Fiat is for at the end of the day. And you know, we plan ahead, we focus ahead on our sort of budgets about what we want to have in our reserves, and we use that rather than having to liquidate any of our gold and silver, which is ultimately that kind of pension pot stack. But again, the nice thing about gold and silver is that it is liquid. You can liquidate it quickly to get that cash out, as opposed to something like property, which will obviously take a longer time to actually get the funds out of. So there we go, that is my thoughts on front loading. In summary, is it a good idea? I think it's a good idea for some people. I think if you've got a very large pot of disposable income that you want to spend, and you've been saving up for a long time and you're not sure what to buy it on, you know, I'd say yeah, front loading into a large bar of gold, for example, getting a kilo bar of gold would be very sensible. But obviously there's other things to think about as well. You know, capital gains tax is definitely something to think about, as well as you know, liquidity, about what you want to do with the money. I would love to know your thoughts though, so please do comment down below in this video what you would do, what you do in your, I just said do, I do apologise, what you do in your own strategies for your pensions or your long-term saving pots. Do you buy more now than you will be planning to do later on? The interesting kind of follow-up topic to this one, and you know, this is one thing I love about the kind of long-term pension savings side of things, is that the question of whether you continue to buy gold and silver at year 30. You know, if year 30 is your kind of terminus date when you're looking to maybe cash in all of that gold and silver, should you even be buying in years sort of 27, 28, 29 and 30? And you know, for me, it's going to be obviously down to my situation when I get to that age, but I can see myself right now buying gold and silver all the way up through my retirement into my my latter years, so to speak, because you're preserving the buying power at that time for, you know, 20 years into your retirement. So lots of very interesting things to think about in that regard. So anyway, that is my thoughts. Please do comment down below. If you like this video, if you like this topic, then please do comment down below, and also put the thumbs up button. Please do also subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more of these interesting topics. If you have a thought-provoking or interesting topic in mind that you think I would enjoy talking about, or you'd like to hear me talking about, then please do comment down below about what you'd like me to talk about. Otherwise, that is all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure that you stick around and check out In Focus Friday, this coming Friday, because this is appearing then. So for all of you out there who are my long-term viewers who stick around to the end of every video, that's what's coming on Friday. It's going to be epic. Make sure you stick around for then. Look at that, the table's shaking as I put it down. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.